being measured, and economics in one sense could be measured by dollars and cents. You know, the Federal Reserve note, circulating currency, it can be measured by that. But economics is simply, there's a Latin root for it, and I'm not remembering what it is, but it is about how life goes forth in general, and how arrangements are made, how things are bought and sold, why things are produced, what motivates people to get up in the morning, as you do every day, and go to an office or go to a plant or be in your pickup truck going down the road. What makes you do that? And I think the fact that we have traffic here in East Ridge or on the highway is a picture of the whole idea of the free market system of capitalism. And that is, everybody behind every wheel is going to serve somebody. It's a personal service he's rendering. It's a duty or an obligation to get something somewhere, to meet someone, to conduct business, or to provide a service. Everyone on the road is there intent on going somewhere. Hang on, David Toulis. And the purpose is private. The purpose is corporate. The purpose is business. But that's the economy. The economy is is a word describing all that human activity. Some for profit, some private, some nonprofit, some charitable. But everybody you see right now at that intersection where you are waiting with your foot on the gas pedal is there for a purpose, and to serve. Almost all of them are serving somebody else. Some, of course, think they're serving themselves. And maybe they need to repent of that concept. But most people are there because they've got to get some other location to provide a benefit to another party. And so we argue for local economy, the free market. And my name is David Toulis. The number is 800-8949, 800-8949, with my co-host today, Marie Mott. And the theory is it's only in pencil, okay? It's not in ink, so we can change things if we want to. It is provisional. And there is a fault, you could say, with the idea of local economy. It's the same fault that President Trump sometimes exhibits when he proposes economic nationalism. It's the same fault, except it's looking not inward but outward. I understand that and I accept that. But the theme of local economy is better than far, small than big, and simple than complex. And those are my arguments, and they often hold true. And in the details, in 5-point type, in the footnotes, if you will, in small type, at Helvetica font, the neutral font, right, the Swiss font, personal is better than corporate, and physical than abstract. And the number is 800-8949, 800-8949, brought to you by Nuganomics.com, the website for the man who matters, the platform that makes me, David Toulis, the blogger with the biggest pen. We've been talking. I'm concerned about what's going to happen with the next young person in a car, the next female in a car being dragged from it. Is that going to happen today? Will it happen today? There is news in the headlines that we are wanting to pass on today. What's the news, Marie, about the Kennedy Gray family?
The news is that we have heard that she has been effectively dismissed of the charges against her. We have contacted the DA, and they have yet to get back to us to confirm this. But that is such exciting news. But at the same time, we cannot leave the conversation of police reform. That should be the next step. Even when people, whether they sue, whether they walk away scot-free, we do have to keep in mind, you, the listener, think about this, is that person never forgets the interaction. That person never forgets the assault. And so we as a community must take the next step that should bring us all together, regardless of color, of gender, of socioeconomic status, of religious faith or faith. But that we should remember that in this given situation, it could be absolutely any of us, or someone we love or care about, or someone that we reside on a street next to, that we are not removed from the probability of going through these things as well.
Well, the officer filed the charge of resisting arrest, stop, frisk under Title 39, the criminal code. And officers think that somehow they can't have an end to a negative interaction without there being a charge filed. Somehow they think that I'm not a man. Officer Wright perhaps felt I'm not a man if I don't file a charge against this girl. Well, what do I have in my basket of tools? And the resisting arrest charge was what he had, but it's simply by bad training in David Roddy's police department. He thought that was appropriate, but it was entirely inappropriate because, number one, there has to be an underlying charge before you can arrest someone for resisting. She had to have been charged with a crime first, and then her noncompliance could have been perhaps construed as being in some way resisting or obstructing an arrest. But there was no underlying charge. So it's bogus to begin with. So without the antecedent charge, without the charge upon which to base the resisting charge, resisting is simply bogus. And yet by training, that's what he thought he had to do. And he had to keep his honor up, right? I'm right to be right, to self-justify. You file a charge. And then the second thing is that the charge requires there to be the use of force. And we don't know what happened in juvenile court, Marie Mott, but the charges against Kennedy, who's 14, were dismissed. And we don't. And the question I had to Lydia Kluwell, the DA's spokeswoman, Neil Pinkston's spokeswoman, was, what was the role of your office in the hearing for that case? Was it dismissed against your wishes, or did you? And here's what I'm hoping to be told. Did you agree that this was simply bogus and wrong, and you were the party proposing dismissal? Because the state, through its agent, the officer, has that charge on the floor, right? And it has the floor. It has to be moved somehow. And so the refusal to prosecute would have been a good step. And, I want, if Neil Pinkston did that, I want to be able to get that out there, right? I want to be the one to trumpet a good action by the state's prosecutor.
Absolutely. And again, 800-8949, 800-8949. You, the listener, give us your sentiments on this. We want to hear from you, whether we agree or not. You, the listener, are important.
You are important. And I don't know if I said, but there has to be force. There was no force exhibited. The girl was in handcuffs, very, very painful abrasions on both wrists that she showed from very, very tightly bound wrist cuffs. And force has to be part of it. If there's no force, there cannot be resisting. So if she had said, "Look, I'm a basket. I'm a basket of potatoes, and you pick me up. I'm not going to walk with you. I'm not going to care. I'm just going to lie here. And if you're going to arrest me, I'm going to let you do all the work," and just been a bag of potatoes. I think she would have had a right to do that, but that's not resisting. Resisting for that charge to apply, Marie Mott, it has to have the force, and force is not passive. Of course, I mean, in a sense, in physics, of course, the fact that something's not moving is force. I mean, an object in stasis, it has a power of resistance, and so you could say theoretically that might apply here. But this is a human question of whether one throws one's hand out and hits the officer, or kicks the officer, or strikes him in some way or other.
Absolutely. And one thing that I want the listener to keep in mind is when we looked at a similar instance that happened a couple of weeks ago, where there was a young white male who was effectively trying to punch the officer and literally trying to hurt the officer. I did not see a similar sort of frustration. I did not witness a similar sort of approach with just the very difference in color or in gender. And I expect, especially in particular with these instances where we have female officers who are on scene, I want to pose to the female officers, I expect for you to be the one to be interacting with me as a woman anyways. I don't expect to have a male effectively pulling on me or pressing on me. I expect you to step in as a female.
Well, somehow there may be some politically correct rule that would forbid there being a distinction made in the sex of the officer dealing with a person who also has a sex, either male or female. There may be a ban on the use of a reasonable understanding of the relation across the sex line, if you could say.
Absolutely. And that's, of course, not to defend anyone or to offend anyone who identifies as a particular gender. But for me, as a woman, I am a fragile being, right? So I am a soft being, and I men are just naturally stronger than I am as a woman, and so I consider myself against a man defenseless. I consider myself as identifying as a woman. I consider myself easily hurt by a man pulling on me. But these are the things that we have to discuss, because as a citizen, I have no clue if there is a distinction to be made between male and female officers and how they approach the citizen. As a citizen, I am completely unaware. And it wasn't brought up until Councilwoman Coonrod actually asked an officer at the city council meeting on Tuesday to come up and explain explain a traffic stop to me. How does that work? And then further explain what would be an instance that would be a perfect time for excessive force. And the initial response of the police officer I found quite interesting. He said, well, that's a very broad question. He said, well, that's a very broad question. And I thought for me as a citizen, it was quite simple. What would be the reason that you would need to use excessive force with me?
This is David Toulis, and you're on with Marie Mott. And David Toulis, what's on your mind?
Hey, guys, I'm going to add my 2 cents. And Marie, I love your dissertation there. But, all this comes down to just common sense. When I deal with patriots, I tell them, if you're dealing with a police officer and you're arrogant and obnoxious, they're going to treat you the same way. It should always be about education. And the police should treat everyone that they encounter as though they're their mother, father, son, or daughter, and with respect and education. And when they don't do that, they're not acting in a professional manner. And if the person's screaming, yelling, cursing at them, well, where they could have cut them a break, don't cut them a break. But you never want to reach to the level of the person you're arresting. You always want to lead by example. What is it to love someone that loves you? Try loving someone that hates you. I mean, if everyone claims to be a Christian in Chattanooga, everyone I run into, I've never met so many Christians in my life. Everyone's a Christian. Well, then prove it. Christ said, what is it to love someone that loves you? Try loving someone that hates you. So if they hate you, love them more. And that should be the attitude of the executive branch of government, is that treat someone like you want to be treated, because maybe you want to be treated like crap, but treat someone the way you would treat, if you're a good person, one of your family members. It's not more complicated than that.
Thanks, Mike. David Toulis here with Marie Mott. Marie, let me ask you, what do you think would be a point or two of reform? There are many things that have been proposed since the Ferguson riots by the Police Executive Research Forum, PERF, and Chuck Wexler, whom I've highly recommended to my listener. And you could say de-escalation is maybe a main concept, but what are some, if that's the case, what would you say would be some of the elements that would constitute de-escalation of policing and police per se in Chattanooga?
Well, the first recommendation that I have is a community oversight board. For us to claim that we are a city of creators, that came from Mayor Andy Burke's State of the City address, that we are a city of creators. If we are a city of creators, then I don't believe that sentiment should just solely encapsulate the idea of we are only creating an elevation of socioeconomic status and prosperity. But as a city of creators, we should be creating new avenues of protecting the citizen, of having better relationships between government and citizen. And so when these instances continue to come to the forefront, we've had so many instances where we just found out this week where Chattanooga is the 7th worst run municipality in the nation. We continue to have the evidence that comes to our forefront that we have much work to do.
Well, when I heard that presentation, I went into deep skepticism mode, Marie.
You went into deep skepticism about how true it was? Well, the reality is, you know, my grandmother used to say, baby, don't you worry. Everything comes out in the wash. You can't fake the funk, right? You can't fake the funk. The reality is that as much as things change, things remain the same. And so we have to do a better job starting from leadership, right? Starting from the people who we put into these positions of power. I believe power is a tool extended to people from the community. And it has to be a situation to where when we have these things come to the forefront, we can't expect that the city can, and this comes from the taxpayer. So you, the listener, 800-8949, 800-8949, you, the listener, your tax dollars go to paying these people when they sue the city of Chattanooga or they sue the Chattanooga Police Department. There goes your tax dollars, which could have been used for something better. It is very important for us to begin these measures. David recommended, instead of having these hard looking uniforms, how about just pulling up in suits or maybe in khaki pants and a polo shirt that just has the insignia of the Chattanooga Police Department, and automatically people are kind of calm when they see that somebody that looks like their gym teacher from high school effectively pulling them over. What do you think?
Well, that's just I mentioned that just because it would be very much disarming of the dread that people often have when they're stopped, when they're assailed, if you will, on the side of the street or at a function where maybe there's some partying going on and one there to keep the peace or one who's answering a call for disturbance has arrived on the scene. And that is perhaps the main word for that. The changing of the guard would be disarmament. He might still have his weapon under his jacket. He might still have his taser. He might still have handcuffs, but it would be under a nice sports jacket that would be worn over his nice white shirt, under which he probably would want to maintain his, since they live in such dread, maintain his armor plate. But get those larger shirts, keep the armor plate on. And have two wardrobes at home, one for church and going to a wedding, and the other one the police one with the extra shirts, wide shirts and jackets.
Absolutely. But the main point is that we cannot let these situations just pass us by. We have to, in the form of our leaders in government as well as the community, we have to begin to build the bridge between us two. If we're going to put people in power, we can't be afraid to stand up to those people when we see things that are going on in the community that are wrong and people are being impacted by that.
Well, another one would be why have 50 rounds of ammunition? Are you expecting that there will be a pitched battle with terrorists, or who is the war being fought against? Why do these officers have to have so much hardware, so many clips of ammo? I mean, they have 4 magazines, some probably holding 16 rounds of if it were 9mm, 16 plus 1, I think, in the Glock model. So that's 40 times 40 plus another 28. So that's 58 round. What kind of encounter are the police facing? Is there a revolution brewing? Is there an armed insurrection coming? Does the sheriff Jim Hammond need to be warned about public disorder? He has the real authority here. Does he have to be notified about this dread in the part of the city officers of some paramilitary or public uproar situation? That's what I wonder about. There doesn't need to be that much hardware when crime since the 1970s has gone down by half. And policing is said to be a very safe profession. It's not more dangerous. It's much less dangerous than many, many other professions, Marie. So what do you think, listener, would be something in the way of reform? How could we make police departments really serve the city as Andy Burke wants? I mean, I think Mayor Burke wants it to be better, but he doesn't know how, or is afraid to make changes. Somehow, maybe he believes, too, that police departments are somehow independent of his authority, which they're not.
What I would recommend is go to your city council meeting. If you can't make your city council meeting, you can phone your city council. You can reach out to the mayor's office. If you see your city council, because these are regular average people, right? Yes, they get to sit down in City Hall in nice air conditioning, but once they leave those buildings, they should be going right back into the communities in which they serve. So when you run across these councilmen and women at the grocery store or at the neighborhood stand or at the CC's Pizza picking up pizza for their grandchildren's birthday party, express your sentiments about how you feel at this.
This is David Toulis, and Wade Hinton is resigning as city attorney, going to work in the insurance sector. I guess I won't get my answer from him about the authority of the police department to exercise criminal enforcement power. But I do have an answer, and I got it from Title 38. Go to Nuganomics.com and read my review of that authority. I would say that yes, there is legal authority for the police department to operate. David Toulis, you're ready.
3, 2, 1. Chattanooga Radio, Digital FM 95.3 HD4, 92.7 FM's news. Now.
Early voting begins in Hamilton County. Until the 28th, you can cast your ballots for a variety of races, including governor and U.S. Senate, along with local positions for sheriff, mayor, commissioners, and school board. You may vote at the Brainerd Rec Center, Collegedale City Hall, the Election Commission off Amnicola, and the Hickson Community Center. Day 2 of testimony in the Labor Day double murder trial